What is the coolest thing you did that no one saw? Story 1. One time at the lake, I got there late and had to launch the boat myself. I unstrapped the boat from the trailer, but didn't want it to float away when I backed in. So I left the nose clipped to the winch until it was in the water. I jumped in the truck, backed the boat in just enough to float off the trailer, and it started floating away. WTF? So I jumped out of the truck, booked it down the ramp in wet flip-flops, jumped in the water, swam to the boat, climbed up the back, started it up, and gave it one quick pulse on the throttle. The boat spun just slightly around and kissed the dock perfectly along the side. I reached over and tied it off. It was the most perfect docking ever. If anyone saw, they would have thought I did that move 1,000 times, but all I could think of was having to swim across the lake trying to catch my boat. I'm very impressed by the running in wet flip-flops, but it's so disappointing that you hadn't unlocked ropes yet. They were unlocked, but not in my personal inventory at the time. The boat was supposed to be clipped to the trailer winch still. I can imagine you sprinting down the ramp in your waterlogged flip-flops, executing a perfect swan dive into the lake and emerging as the heroic captain of your runaway boat. Just remember, next time you go for a joyride, keep those boat keys close and the swimming lessons optional. Story 2. I was in the shower once and realized I forgot to turn the bathroom fan on, so I leaned out, grabbed my towel, and used it like a whip. It hit the switch dead on and only took one swing, so for one brief and fleeting moment, I was Indiana Jones. Have you tried hitting flies like that? It's easier than it sounds and looks cool. I made a moth basically explode midair with a towel whip once. Can confirm, felt like Indiana Jones. And I struggled to kill flies with a fly swatter. Story 3. Once my friends and I were at a theme park in Ohio, Kings Island, riding a coaster called the Firehawk. It's a pretty cool ride where you actually lay flat for the majority of it. Anyway, about halfway through I feel something hit my arm and I instinctively grab it. It's my friend's cell phone. I caught a cell phone in midair on a roller coaster. It was pretty epic. The ride ends and my buddy says that was awesome, but I think my cell phone came out of my pocket. I raised my arm up and replied, "You mean this one?" I felt like a badass all day. We're kindred ninja spirits. I caught a wad of cash that flew out of the pocket of the guy sitting in front of me on test track at Epcot. We ended the ride and he was awfully mad about his cash going bye-bye. "Not today, sir. I'm here for you. I got smacked in the head by a quarter during a big drop one time. Can I join your club?" What a hero. The real question now is, do you offer your services as a professional phone retriever on thrill rides? I'm sure there's a market for it. Story 4. I was in the shower brushing my teeth when my toothbrush slipped out of my mouth. I don't know how I did it, but I caught the toothbrush right in between my big and pointer toes. This happened 12 years ago, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. Another thing I did recently was fix an ATM. The screen was all jacked up and I punched it like the Fonz from Happy Days. The screen worked after that, but again, nobody was around to see it. Good old percussive maintenance. Bingo, it's a real solution to many things with electrical connections. Story 5. I was driving down a road, probably way too fast, back when I valued getting places quickly more than getting places alive. There were about 6 cars ahead of me and none of them had any following distance to speak of. We got to an intersection, we had right of way, and the front car got smacked by a car coming from the intersection, also traveling way too fast. This sets off a chain reaction as the rest of the cars join the accident, with cars flying left and right. This sets the stage for me. I'm traveling way too fast for stopping to be an option. I managed to swing left between 2 cars, immediately spin the wheels, and swing right through the next obstacle, and after that I can't remember what the heck I did. All I know is that I somehow managed to slalom between every single car without ever so much as scratching anything. Having successfully pulled off the luckiest feat of driving skill I'm ever going to accomplish in my life, I was able to come to a smooth stop and see if I needed to render any assistance. It was honestly like a scene out of a movie, and somehow in my mad panic I got lucky enough to do exactly the right thing. It's crazy how untapped driving skills get called forth like a hidden magical power when stuff hits the fan. Many times in the snow or ice I've lost control of my car, flipped into hyperdrive mode, and pulled some slick movie stunt moves out of my butt. Once I spun out real bad into oncoming traffic, corrected it, and just smugly waved at the lady I almost smashed into as my car righted and I continued on driving past her like nothing happened. Yes, same here. Countless times I've saved myself from a small accident by reflexes. There was even a time when my wheel grip completely lost control, yet I managed to survive. And then, when I think about it later, I'm like, how the heck did I do that? Story 6. Not me, but my fiance's aunt. She She was skiing, lost control, and ended up on a collision course with a log lying across her path, with no time to avoid it. As she hit the log, instead of being ejected from her skis, they stayed attached as she was catapulted forwards. At this point, I should mention she was a very accomplished trampolinist in her youth. I think she won a few national competitions or something. So you have a skilled trampolinist flung forwards and upwards at speed. What happens? Instinct takes over, she tucks in her legs, completes a front somersault, lands on her skis, and rides off like nothing happened. Nobody she knew witnessed it, just a random stranger a bit of a way off. It must have looked awesome. I'm a trampolinist. Those reflexes have come in handy more than once. Story 7. Kinda cheating because one person saw it. In bars, here in Scotland, we have bandits or puggies, basically rip-off arcade machines that drunk people pile money into, hit buttons, etc. Anyway, I used to work in a little bar with one in the corner, and one night I was ushering people out of the bar as we were closed, and I was talking to a girl I remember thinking was attractive. For some reason, we ended up talking about the bandit on the way out the door, about how it was a rip-off and how no one ever wins. I remember saying, "Watch me waste 50 pence right now," putting it in the slot and hitting the start button. Immediate jackpot of £100. It was literally the smoothest thing ever to happen. I never saw her again. Maybe she thought you set it up since you worked with the bar. Like, make patrons think they can win so they waste more money. Yeah, that did cross my mind, but the companies that install these things in bars have them tighter than a confession box. It is not possible for staff or management in the bar to even open the darn things. The aforementioned company comes in like once a month to take their money. Who needs cheesy pickup lines when you have the power to conquer arcade machines? Too bad she didn't stick around to benefit from your good luck. Her loss. Story 8. I grew up in Palestine, and when I was around 14, the Israeli army would regularly enter our city and impose curfew. After months of this on and off and being the little punks we were, we got bored of staying home. So I started to go out on my bike to meet some friends and play soccer somewhere hidden. One day on my way home, I came across an open field with trees on the other side of it, and there is a 6-foot or 140 centimeter wall exactly on the side of the street. Between those trees, I see a group of soldiers, and one of them points his rifle at me. At that moment, I go to the side of the street, put my left hand on the wall while driving my bike, and jump behind the wall. The moment my legs hit the ground, I heard gunshots and the bullets hissing in the air above my head. I waited there for half an hour and never told my family because that would mean no more soccer. 14-year-olds out after curfew would be shot on sight? It wasn't common to have on-foot soldiers in the fields at all. Usually it was only tanks and other military vehicles, so it might have been a special force or something. Also, the shots never hit the wall, so it might have been warning shots in the air. Story 9. I was changing my 4 to 5 month old baby at a station in a bathroom. While putting away all the stuff and holding her in my right arm, she did that baby thing when they kind of flex or straighten their whole body and threw herself out of my grip. Without even thinking, my other hand caught her very smoothly and delicately out of midair. It happened so quickly, I was kind of shocked. I played basketball most of my life, so I guess those reflexes had some use after all, since I caught her like you would a ball. I told my wife after, and her heart almost stopped. I still haven't told my mom, or she'd hit me or something. Things like this are why I don't want to hold babies for too long. Story 10. I was lying in bed alone while my ex was at work on a Saturday morning. The dog wakes up and wants to play, so she brings me a tennis ball. I threw the ball without getting up. It bounced off the hallway wall, down the stairs, into the kitchen, turned on the garbage disposal, landed in the garbage disposal, and was destroyed. How did it activate the garbage disposal? Was it a switch or one of those push buttons? It was a wall switch, one of the full-width toggle switches. Thinking about its position relative to the stairs and sink, I really don't know how it made it. Story 11. I prevented a violent incident using only the word banana. I was at a karaoke bar with a friend of mine, and while he was up singing, this couple behind me was being harassed by this guy who was very drunk. He started making threats at the couple and pounding his hand on the table, and they looked freaked out. I drunkenly turned around and really matter-of-factly said, "Banana, banana, 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 banana." The raging dude stopped, looked at me, smiled, and went, "I like you, man. All you care about is bananas," and then walked away as if nothing happened. The confused look on the couple's faces was priceless. I still wish someone I knew had been around to confirm that actually happened. I once prevented a situation not unlike that one with the phrase "cotton candy fire hydrant." I felt like a Jedi. Well, that's one way to defuse a tense situation. Who knew that bananas had such magical powers? I guess we've been underestimating their ability to bring peace to the world. Story 12. My phone was snatched by someone mugging me. His arm was outstretched, and as I punched him, I hit his arm on the way to his face, as my phone went flying out of his hand towards me, soared over my head and over a fence behind me into a ditch right before a river. It landed about 5 meters behind me. Yeah, he saw it, but it's the most spectacular thing I've done that no one else but me and that mugger saw. What happened after that? Did you kiss? No, his gang caught up and rushed me. They all sprinted off, probably because of my screaming and punching. I don't think they expected it. Story 13. Many years ago, I worked at a movie theater. One day, I was using a long extension pole to change one of the large commercial recessed light bulbs in a high ceiling. It's gotta be like 25 feet up. It was after the rush, so there were only a few customers left at the concession stands, and most of the employees back there were concentrating on cleaning up and restocking for the next rush. As I am removing the old bulb, it pops off of the gripping device at the end of the pole and falls. My immediate thought was that this thing is going to hit the ground, explode, and send shards of glass into a customer. I should have backed away, but my instincts took over and I stupidly thrust my arm out to catch the oversized bulb in one hand, and I caught it. I'm sure it was a majestic sight to behold if anyone had actually witnessed it, but when I turned around, nobody had noticed. Not a single customer or employee had been looking my way. I risked hurting my hand and probably saved someone from being blinded. Never mind that I was the one who dropped it in the first place, and not a single person saw me do it. Story 14. Another shower story here. I was lathering up with my bar of soap. This was in the days before body washes really took off. I was lathering around my side and the bar slipped out of my hand and shot down one side of the tub. Just missed my toes along the bottom, and when it came up the other side, I was able to catch it with the other hand. I probably switched to a body wash shortly after, because really what's the point in continuing with soap bars when I clearly maxed their level? So before body wash really took off, your bar of soap really took off and even stuck the landing. Classic ninja trick. Story 15. There was a coyote that had been killing rabbits on my grandpa's farm, but it always stayed too far from his shotgun range. One day I was helping him out by spraying the apple trees when I saw the coyote. Now, I'm not into violence of any kind, but I am anti-carnivorous wild animal this close to my grandparents' house. I plucked off a nice big fresh green apple and sized him up, maybe 20 yards or so. That's pretty close for a wild coyote, but it's pretty far for throwing something. Nevertheless, I winged that apple as hard as I could and hit the coyote right square in the head. Hard. He went down and didn't move for a minute or so. It seemed like a long time, but it wasn't long enough for me to become brave enough to approach. The coyote came to and ran off. I felt like such a badass, but there was nobody there to high-five. We never saw the coyote again. I know there were probably more of them, but I felt like the defender of the realm that day. Story 16. One time, I was sorting through some coins in preparation for buying a soda at a vending machine. I dropped a quarter and instinctively lifted my leg to try and catch it or something. It bounced off my knee and into the coin slot. No one saw and no one believed me that it happened. It was glorious though. Even I don't believe you. You really think someone would go on the internet and tell lies? Story 17. I was backing out of a space in a parking garage. I looked both ways and no one was coming, so I hit the gas. Some guy in a Ford Taurus came around the corner and I backed into the corner of his bumper. I'm thinking, crap, no matter what, this will be my fault. I pulled back into the space and hopped out to survey the damage. Nothing in my car, but there was a fist-sized dent in his bumper. He got out, obviously pissed. No idea what made me do it, but I walked over to his car, made a fist, and hit the bumper right next to the dent. Basically the way Fonzie would hit the jukebox. The dent popped right out and looked good as new. The guy just stood there with his mouth hanging open for a second, then he turned around and got in his car and drove away without saying a word. I felt so cool. He didn't even see the dent. You just started punching his car, so he made the smart move of fleeing. I've seen something like this happen before. My dad accidentally dented my aunt's car, and while she was freaking out and yelling at him, he touched the dent and it instantly popped back into place. Who needs car insurance when you've got the magic touch? Story 18. I was in a classroom with only one other person who happened to be asleep. I'm just sitting at my desk waiting for the day to end, my hands on my desk. The kid who was asleep was known to move around a lot when he was asleep, and he somehow threw a pencil at a desk. The pencil bounces from one desk to the next, to a third, and lands in my hand perfectly in writing position. Well, almost perfect. It landed in my left hand, and I'm right-handed. Still, an amazing feat that proved to be the universe gives no craps. I have a similar experience. I'm must have been about 9 years old at the time, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. I was bored in class, messing around with my pencil. Naturally, I decided it would be a good idea to catapult it by laying it down on my desk and slamming down on the pointed end. To my surprise, it traveled across the classroom and landed perfectly between a kid's fingers who was in the middle of a conversation. The look of shock and confusion on his face was so priceless as all I could do was laugh. He and everyone else that saw it suddenly appear in his hand had absolutely no clue where it came from. I didn't bother telling anyone it was me because it was much funnier this way. To this day, I'm the only one who knows where that pencil came from. You're a hidden god among men. To this day, many tell of the fable of the magic pencil, but only you know the truth. Story 19. While eating at a restaurant by the ocean, a seagull was flying around. Some kids saw dolphins jumping out of the water. While everyone was distracted by the dolphins, I yelled, "Hey bird," while I rushed towards him. The seagull stopped mid-flight and we made eye contact as he hovered in place. I tossed the fry and it landed perfectly in his beak. No one saw any of it. They're actually really good at catching stuff like this. I love going to a beach where there's no one else there, as I know most people don't want a flock of seagulls ruining their nice day at the beach, and they'll fly right up to your hands and eat right out of them while hovering. I hate you and everyone else who feeds seagulls. Let me tell you about Aberystwyth seagulls. I live in a coastal town. Our seagulls are completely fearless and actually attack people for food. They fly down and swipe chips, fly into your back so you drop whatever's in your hands, and even savage people with their beaks. They're noticeably bigger than most UK seagulls and the epitome of everything that's wrong with this world. Satan himself would fear to keep one of these monsters as a pet. They are the loudest, most obnoxious beings in this world, or the next. They've tried everything short of mounting anti-air guns on top of the buildings, up to and including using falcons to hunt them down. But nothing works. Feeding seagulls turns them into these monstrous beasts of the netherworld. So please don't. Story 20. Back in the day when I lived in the mountains, I drove a tow truck. I was still pretty green, and the owner of the company was going to have me run doubles for the first time by taking some junkers to the wrecking yard off the mountain. I took one from the yard and it went on the bed no problem. I then picked the second one up from an empty lot in another little town on the way down the mountain. I had to load it on my boon and had to do it on this narrow, windy street that had a slight downhill slant to it. Well, of course, I forgot to set my chocks, so as soon as the boon lifted the street, the parking brake gave out and the whole rig took off down the street. When it started moving, I was at the tail end of it, and it was something like 20 feet to the cab without counting the distance it was rapidly gaining between me and it. I ran faster than I probably ever have, and thank God I left the driver's door open. I leaped inside and actually landed with my full weight on the park brake pedal, which locked up the dualies, and it slid to within an inch or two of a handcrafted log fence. Thank goodness no one saw that. Story 21. I was falling off of my bike, riding with no hands, with a computer bag in one hand and texting on my phone with the other. The pedals got stuck, the bike flipped, and I still managed to land on my feet, finishing my text message. What was the text? "Woo, biking with no hands. Hold on, about to flip my bike. You should consider joining the circus with those balancing skills. Just be careful next time and remember that gravity always wins, no matter how skilled you are at finishing a text message mid-air." Story 22. I backhanded half a glass of milk off a table, caught it with the same hand, and didn't spill a drop. No one else in the darn house saw it. This happened years ago and it still makes me mad no one saw. The same exact thing happened to me at a restaurant, except people saw it and some clapped. I'm living your dream. And your reply even has more upvotes. Poor OP. Story 23. Once as a kid, I was working on some kind of school project involving scissors. While cutting, I noticed a mosquito was insistent on buzzing around my nose and face in general, which was distracting and annoying. I snipped my scissors at it, really more as a feeble attempt to shoo it away, but I managed to cut its wings off in midair. Unable to fly away, I promptly squashed the newly flightless insect. So, if you had been able to fly away, you would have spared it? Yeah, ever heard of the fight or flight response? Story 24. I once walked past a carpet outside that someone had decided to put in the garbage in front of my house. I don't know why, but I decided to quickly bring it inside and take a few photos of it. It was about 6 feet wide and 8 feet long in a green and brown Navajo-style print. I quickly grabbed some photos of it with my phone and put it on Craigslist for the best offer while I was driving to work. At around noon the same day, I got an email saying he would offer me $1,000 for it if he could pick it up from me today. I told him to meet me at 6. He did and promptly handed me a $1,000. If someone makes an offer like that, you can be sure it's worth much more. Yeah, that's what my girlfriend said. I'm not a carpet expert by any means, but I know the difference between machine-made and handmade. It wasn't handmade. It was not a brand that was important, and it was not an antique. So even if it was worth like $2,000 to $3,000, which I really doubt it was, I'm still okay to hand it off to this mystery man that paid me in cash for it. He can reap all the benefits because I frankly don't care. And also I hate when people dispose of big stuff in front of my parking spot. I'm afraid the garbage man will scratch my car with it when moving it. So I win a little, he wins a little. Or a lot, I guess. Regardless, I'm happy. Story 25. I threw my toothbrush over the top of the shower cubicle and it landed in the glass where we keep the toothbrushes. No one believes me, but it remains my #1 achievement in life. I hope the toilet seat was down. Risky throw. Risky throw regardless. The floor can't be that clean, especially the area around the base of the toilet. Dude has to be pretty confident in his skills to take that kind of shot. That, or just gross, I guess. I like living on the edge. Hey, the smartest gambles you can make are on yourself. Brush up on your skills a bit and maybe we can make a competition out of it. Story 26. I was walking past one of those giant Jenga sets in a bar, and I decided I was feeling destructive, so I high kicked at it thinking I would knock it over. I'd have picked it up. Haven't you ever just wanted to be harmlessly destructive before? But anyways, I didn't knock it over. I hit one block and it came out perfectly halfway. I stopped, amazed at what I had done without aim, pulled it the rest of the way out, set it on top and moved on. No one in the bar said anything about it, so I don't think anyone even saw. Everyone thought you were some kind of kung fu master, so everyone who noticed kept their mouth shut and did never look at you again. Story 27. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with building ramps and jumping off of them with my bike. One day, I built a ramp that was maybe 6 inches tall, and I decided I was going to jump over a tricycle that was about 2 feet tall. I put the tricycle right in front of the ramp and pedaled as fast as I could at the thing. Obviously, I didn't make it, not even close. My front wheel immediately hit the tricycle while I, still holding onto my bike out of sheer terror, somersaulted and landed right side up and continued riding. Sadly, I was still so surprised at what had just happened that I rode straight into a stump and fell over, basically following the coolest thing I had ever done with the lamest thing I had ever done. You could try it now on national TV, but a tricycle is a must. I could, but I would fail. It only worked then because out of fear I locked up my muscles, and I didn't think, just held tight and waited to die. I was pretty shocked when I ended right side up again. Story 28. In college, 25 years ago, a friend walked into a crowded student lounge between classes, called to me to toss him a cigarette, and pursed his lips jokingly. From about 15 feet away, I threw the cigarette, which spun like a knife in the air, and it landed perfectly between his lips, like it was a movie. We both threw our hands in the air and yelled. In a room of 50 people, no one saw it. I'm 45 years old with a beautiful family and a successful career, and that was still the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life. I'm not proud of that. I had a similar moment in college as well. I was living in a townhouse with 3 other roommates and was standing at the kitchen table prepping something. My roommate's keys happened to be in front of me on the table. He was sitting on the couch and then abruptly got up to hurry off to class. As he walked past me, I saw him pat himself down, then say, "Crap, where are my keys?" To which I naturally replied, "Right here in front of me." I picked them up and randomly tossed them over my shoulder behind me in his general direction, since I was still in the middle of doing something. A second later, I hear him calmly say, "Thanks." I said, "Whoa, you just caught that? I thought I was being a jerk and just randomly chucking keys at you." He replied, "What do you mean caught that? I thought you placed them in my hand. I was in a hurry, so I just kept walking and put my hand behind my back. I thought you ran up to me and placed them there." We were both floored. We reconstructed the crime scene and realized he must have been about 12 feet away from me when I tossed the keys over my shoulder and perfectly into his hand, which he had behind his back as he walked away. Not a single person saw it, not even us. I think you might have won. When even the people doing it didn't see, that's some intense stuff. Story 29. I was walking downstairs and slipped. My feet somehow made contact with the edges of adjacent steps, so I slid down the last few steps corner to corner without falling, and stuck the landing. I couldn't replicate that if I tried 100 times, and I'd probably end up in the hospital before the 10th try. When I was growing up, I would do this consistently on the stairs to the basement when I was wearing socks. Done this a few times in socks, always accidentally. Feels like I cheated death every time. Congratulations, you've just discovered a new Olympic sport. Stair surfing. Just make sure to keep the hospital on speed dial during practice. Story 30. Once, whilst walking sleepily to college, I was listening to music on my iPod, and I felt the sudden need to scratch my ear. During the scratch, I somehow flicked my earphones out and they swung down to my foot, which was mid-motion walking forward. Without skipping a beat, I somehow kicked my earphone, and it swung back up and landed perfectly in my hand, which was still scratching my ear. At this point, I put the earphone back in my ear and carried on walking. I didn't realize until after how smooth it must have looked, but unfortunately no one saw. At work, I was running down the corridor at the end of the shift, and my mini disc player fell out of my pocket. Just as my foot was swinging forward, I booted the player straight back to the brick wall next to the door. It smashed to pieces. For some reason, I thought you were going to kick it back up into your hands. I was horribly wrong. Story 31. I saved a turtle from some crazy seagull that was attacking it. I don't think the turtle gave a crap. It just walked away like, "What took you so long? I got places to be." Or you killed a seagull by denying him his food and he starved. People always forget they are taking away food from a predator when saving about to die wildlife. Story 32. About 10 minutes ago, I dropped an orange. It bounced off my knee and I caught it in the dark. This is probably the all-time peak of coolness in my life, and it unfolded alone at 6 a.m. Who eats oranges alone in the dark at 6 a.m.? Insomniacs with scurvy? Story 33. When I flipped my grilled cheese onto my plate and it landed perpendicular to the plate. Never again will I be so excited for something so trivial. 10 out of 10 would flip again. Perpendicular in which plane though? If it's vertical, that's way more impressive. I just assumed he meant it stood up on one edge. If he means anything else, then this post sucks. Story 34. I was restocking some stuff when working at a grocery store and found a lime on a random shelf. I threw it all the way down the aisle, which is a good 50 feet or so, and made it directly into the cart I was pulling stuff out of. I didn't even damage the lime. Nobody saw. The worst part is that I throw stuff all the time and am generally known for having horrible aim, even at short distances. I also work in a grocery store and I also throw everything with terrible aim. It was busy, so I opened my register to lighten the load. This lady forgets one of those 1-liter polar waters. The head cashier walks by, so he just throws his hands up for me to toss it. The bottle hits the cooler in front of me, turns, flies down the aisle, and shoots the cap off while leaving a 10-foot trail of seltzer water for the porter to come clean up. Thank goodness it was late and the managers were all gone. Just found out why my Ritz crackers are always bags full of crumbs. Story 35. I had to film myself giving a speech about football's political impact on the world. This was for a communication course, so I decided to take a hands-on approach to my topic. I went to a local field and started the video by kicking a ball into a net. The very first kick, I scored an Olympico, meaning I curled the ball into the net from the corner flag. Hyped up, I went back to my phone to find it wasn't even recording. I'm actually very sad for you. I can picture you running excitedly back to your phone and your dashed look. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story that you would like to share, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.